Commander Elias Reed stood at the large window of Orbital Station Theta, watching the stars. His dark eyes focused on the approaching alien ship. It looked like a giant silver teardrop against the blackness of space. The ship moved smoothly, without any visible engines. "They're here," said Captain Martinez, walking up beside him. Reed nodded, his face serious. 6 months ago, the Varnians had appeared in Earth's solar system. They said they came in peace, but Reed didn't fully trust them. 20 years in Earth's space forces had taught him to be careful. "What do you think of our visitors, Commander?" Martins asked. Reed touched the gun hidden under his uniform jacket. "Let's just say I'll feel better when we know why they're really here." The station shook slightly as the alien ship connected to the docking bay. Reed straightened his blue uniform and walked with Martinez to meet the visitors. His heart beat faster, though his face remained calm. The airlock doors slid open with a hiss. 3 tall figures stepped through. They looked almost human, except for their blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Their movements were graceful, like dancers. The tallest alien stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Taylor of the Varnian Collective. We bring greetings to Earth." Her voice was musical, with perfect English. Reed studied her face. She had high cheekbones, large eyes that shifted between purple and blue, and no hair. Instead, her head was covered with small, shimmering scales. She wore a simple silver suit that seemed to flow like water. "Welcome, Ambassador," said Martinez. "I'm Captain Martins, and this is Commander Reed, head of station security." Following protocol, Reed extended his hand. "Ambassador." Taylor hesitated, then placed her cool, smooth hand in his. The moment their skin touched, her eyes widened. She pulled her hand away quickly. Reed felt a strange tingling sensation run up his arm. "Is everything all right, Ambassador?" he asked. "Yes," she said sharply. "Just unused to human customs." The meeting continued as planned. The Varnians were shown to their quarters, and a dinner was scheduled for that evening. But Reed couldn't forget Taylor's reaction. Something had happened when they touched, something that clearly surprised her. Later, he saw her alone in the station's garden area. She stood before a small fountain, watching the water with fascination. "Ambassador," Reed said, approaching slowly, "I hope your accommodations are comfortable." She turned, her face suddenly cold. "They are adequate." "I was wondering about your reaction earlier, when we shook hands," Reed said. "Is that not done among your people?" Taylor's eyes narrowed. "Commander Reed, I suggest you focus on your security duties and leave me alone. Some questions are better not asked." With that, she walked away, leaving Reed confused and more suspicious than before. That night, Reed couldn't sleep. He tossed in his bed, thinking about the strange visitors. Just as he was finally drifting off, he heard a soft sound from the corner of his room. His hand moved quickly to the gun beside his bed. "Who's there?" he called into the darkness. A shape moved from the shadows. The blue glow of skin revealed Ambassador Taylor standing in his room. "How did you get in here?" Reed demanded, sitting up. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need your help. Your people are in grave danger." Reed stared at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" Taylor glanced nervously at the door. "I'm not who you think I am. And my people aren't what they claim to be." She moved closer, her eyes now filled with fear. "I told you to leave me alone because others are watching. But I had to come. You're the only one who can help me save your world." Reed kept his gun pointed at her. "Why should I believe you?" "Because," she said softly, "when we touched, I saw your mind. And now, I need you to see the truth about mine." Reed kept his gun steady, pointed at the alien woman standing in his dark room. "Start talking," he said. "And it better be good." Taylor moved slowly, her blue skin giving off enough light to see her worried face. "I am not an ambassador," she said. "I am a fugitive. A fugitive." Reed didn't lower his weapon. "From what?" "From my own people." She sat on the edge of the bed, keeping her distance from Reed. The Varnian Collective is not a peaceful group. They are conquerors. They have taken over 12 worlds already. Reed frowned. If that's true, why are you telling me this? Why betray your own kind? Because I belong to the Resistance, she explained. A small group of us fight against the Collective. We believe all species should be free. Her voice grew softer. I was sent here to warn Earth before it's too late. That's hard to believe, Reed said. Why would you risk your life for humans? Tayla's eyes glowed brighter. When we touched hands today, did you feel something strange? Reed nodded slowly. A tingling feeling. My people can read minds through touch, she said. That's how we choose which worlds to conquer. We test the strongest minds to see if they pose a threat. Her eyes locked with his. Your mind is different, Commander Reed. It resisted me. Reed finally lowered his gun, but kept it close. What does that mean? It means humans might have a chance, Tayla said. Your thoughts are chaotic, unpredictable. Our telepathic powers don't work well on you. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, clear cube. Here is proof of what I'm saying. She pressed the cube, and a 3D image appeared above it. Reed saw alien ships, hundreds of them, moving into formation. This is the invasion fleet, Tayla explained. They will arrive in 30 Earth days. The ambassadors like me are just scouts, studying your weaknesses. Reed's mind raced. If she was telling the truth, humanity was in serious danger. But if she was lying, why come to me? He asked. Why not go to Earth's leaders? Your leaders are already being influenced, she said. The Varnians who came with me are much stronger telepaths than I am. And when I touched your hand, I felt something rare, a mind that can block our powers. She looked at him with hope. You might be the key to saving your species. Before Reed could respond, a loud alarm blared through the station. Red emergency lights flashed in his room. What's happening? Tayla jumped to her feet, her face filled with fear. Reed rushed to his computer panel. Someone reported an intruder in my quarters. He turned to her with suspicion. Is this a trap? No. They must have detected me leaving the ambassador quarters. Tayla looked desperate. The real ambassador was supposed to arrive tomorrow. They weren't supposed to check on me until then. Reed grabbed his uniform jacket. If you're lying to me. I'm not, she cut him off. We need to leave now. If they catch me, they'll read my mind and know I've warned you. Then they'll kill us both. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Reed made a quick decision and opened a small panel in the wall, revealing an emergency escape hatch. This leads to the maintenance shuttles, he said, grabbing a small bag and stuffing it with supplies. If you're telling the truth, we need to get to Earth and warn people who will listen. Tayla nodded, relief showing on her face. Thank you for believing me. I don't believe you yet, Reed said as they climbed into the narrow passage. But I can't ignore the possibility that you're right. As they crawled through the dark tunnel, the station's AI announced over the speakers, Security alert. Commander Reed and the Varnian representative have left their quarters. All personnel are ordered to find and detain them. Reed looked back at Tayla. You better be worth ending my career for, alien woman. She met his gaze without blinking. If I'm right, Commander, your career is the least of what's at stake. Reed and Tayla reached the small hangar where maintenance shuttles were kept. Alarms still blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, making Tayla's blue skin look purple in the glow. We need to hurry, Reed said, punching in his access code to open a shuttle door. They'll check here soon. They climbed into the small craft. It wasn't built for comfort, just for fixing things outside the station. Reed quickly started the engines while Tayla looked nervously at the hangar doors. Do you know how to fly this? She asked. Reed smiled for the first time since meeting her. I was a pilot before becoming security chief. This little ship is simple compared to what I've flown. The shuttle hummed to life. Just as Reed prepared to launch, the hangar doors opened. Two security officers ran in, pointing their weapons. "Commander Reed, stop and surrender," one shouted. Reed hit the launch button. The shuttle shot forward, barely missing the officers as it flew out of the hangar and into open space. "Hold on," Reed warned as he pushed the engines to full power. The small craft shook violently as it accelerated away from the station. Taylor looked out the window. "We have company," she said, pointing at 3 sleek ships launching from the Varnian vessel. "Scout ships," Reed muttered. "Faster than us, I bet." He turned the shuttle toward Earth, which hung like a blue jewel in the distance. "We need to lose them before we reach Earth, or we'll be shot down by our own defenses." "Why would humans shoot at you?" Taylor asked. "Because right now, I look like a traitor who kidnapped an alien ambassador," Reed explained. "No one will believe our story without proof." As if to confirm his words, a message came through the radio. "Commander Reed, this is Captain Martinez. Return to the station immediately. You are considered hostile and dangerous." Reed ignored the message and focused on flying. The Varnian scout ships were gaining on them. One fired a warning shot that flashed past their shuttle. "They're trying to disable us, not destroy us," Taylor said. "They want me alive to find out what I told you." Reed nodded grimly. "Then we definitely can't let them catch us." He turned the shuttle toward a field of space debris, remains of old satellites and space junk that orbited Earth. The shuttle was small enough to navigate through it, but the faster Varnian ships would have trouble following. "This is going to be rough," he warned. The shuttle dived into the debris field. Reed's hands moved quickly over the controls, guiding them between broken metal parts and chunks of rock. One of the Varnian ships clipped a large piece of debris and spun away. The other 2 slowed down, giving Reed the chance he needed. "We're going to make a run for Earth," he said. "But we can't go to any major city or military base. They'll be looking for us." Taylor suddenly grabbed her head, wincing in pain. "What's wrong?" Reed asked, concerned despite his lingering doubts about her. "Earth's atmosphere. It affects my people," she explained. "I'll need time to adjust." Reed looked at her with new worry. "How long can you survive?" "Long enough," she said firmly. "We need to find someone who will listen to us." As they approached Earth's atmosphere, the shuttle began to shake more violently. Warning lights flashed on the control panel. "We've got damage from the debris field," Reed said, "and Earth's defense systems just locked onto us." A new alarm sounded as missiles launched from Earth's defense platforms. "They're not taking chances," Reed said, his voice tense. "Hold on tight." He pushed the damaged shuttle into a steep dive, trying to evade the missiles. The heat of re-entry made the cabin glow red. One missile exploded nearby, rocking the shuttle and damaging one engine. "We're going down," Reed shouted over the noise. "I can't control where we land anymore." Taylor gripped her seat as the shuttle plunged toward Earth. Through the window, she saw white mountains and forests below. "If we survive this," Reed said, fighting with the controls, "we need to find Dr. Maya Chen. She's an old friend who might believe us." The shuttle screamed through the clouds, heading for a snow-covered valley. "I trust you," Taylor said simply, as the ground rushed up to meet them. The shuttle crashed into deep snow. The impact threw Reed forward, but his safety harness saved him from serious injury. He looked over at Taylor, who hung limply in her seat. "Taylor, are you all right?" he asked, unbuckling his harness. She opened her eyes slowly. "I will survive," she said weakly. Her blue skin had paled to a lighter shade. Reed checked the shuttle systems. "Nothing works, and it's freezing outside." He grabbed emergency supplies from a compartment, warm clothes, a medical kit, and a location beacon. "We can't use that," Taylor said, pointing at the beacon. "They'll find us." Reed nodded and put it back. "We need to find shelter. According to our trajectory before we crashed, Dr. Chen's research facility should be about 15 miles north of here." They stepped out into knee-deep snow. Mountains surrounded them, and the wind cut through their clothes. Taylor shivered violently. Earth's cold affects me badly, she explained, stumbling forward. Reed supported her with his arm. Just keep moving. We'll get there. They trudged through snow for hours. As night fell, Taylor grew weaker. Her steps became slower, and she leaned more heavily on Reed. I can't, she whispered, her legs giving out. Without a word, Reed lifted her onto his back. She felt surprisingly light. I'm not leaving you behind, he said firmly. Not after coming this far. He carried her through the darkness, following the stars for direction. His military training had prepared him for survival, but the extra weight and freezing temperatures pushed him to his limits. Just before dawn, lights appeared in the distance. A large, modern building sat nestled against the mountain. Dr. Chen's facility, Reed said, his breath making clouds in the cold air. We made it. At the entrance, security cameras tracked their approach. A voice came through a speaker. Identify yourself. Commander Elias Reed, he answered. I need to see Dr. Maya Chen. It's an emergency. After a long pause, the doors slid open. A woman with short gray hair and glasses stood inside, flanked by 2 security guards with weapons ready. Elias. Dr. Chen looked shocked. The entire Space Force is looking for you. They say you kidnapped an alien ambassador. Her eyes widened as she saw Taylor on Reed's back. My God. Maya, I need your help, Reed said urgently. She needs medical attention, and we have information that could save humanity. Dr. Chen hesitated, then nodded to her guards. Take the alien to the medical lab. Gently. As the guards lifted Taylor from Reed's back, she grabbed his hand weakly. Don't leave me, she whispered. I won't, he promised. Hours later, Taylor rested in a hospital bed, connected to machines monitoring her condition. Reed had explained everything to Dr. Chen, who listened without interrupting. It sounds impossible, she said when he finished. But I've known you for 20 years, Elias. You wouldn't risk everything without good reason. Do you believe me? Reed asked. I believe you believe it, she answered carefully. And that's enough for now. She turned to her computer. Let's see what proof we can find. Over the next week, as Taylor recovered, they gathered evidence. Dr. Chen's advanced computers detected unusual signals coming from Varnian ships positioned around Earth. Taylor helped translate intercepted messages that confirmed the invasion plans. Other trusted scientists and military personnel were secretly brought to the facility. A small resistance group formed, with Reed and Taylor at its center. During a meeting, a young scientist named Kim made an accidental discovery. When she played music in the lab, Taylor reacted strangely. That sound, Taylor said, looking disturbed. It creates patterns that hurt my mind. Reed looked at Dr. Chen with sudden hope. Music? Varnians don't have music. Taylor shook her head. Our telepathic communication has no need for it. Kim turned up the volume, playing different styles of music. Some had no effect, but certain rhythmic patterns made Taylor extremely uncomfortable. That might be our weapon, Reed said, excitement in his voice for the first time. If music disrupts their telepathic networks. Dr. Chen nodded, understanding. We may have found humanity's advantage. Outside the facility, snow continued to fall, hiding them from the world. But they knew they couldn't hide forever. Soon, they would need to take their discovery public before the invasion fleet arrived. 2 weeks after arriving at Dr. Chen's facility, Reed stood in front of a large screen showing a map of Earth. Red dots marked places where Varnian ships had landed. They're taking control of major cities, he explained to the 20 people gathered in the room. These were scientists, soldiers, and engineers who had joined their resistance. They're telling world leaders they come in peace, but Taylor's information shows their real plan. Taylor, now stronger and more adjusted to Earth's atmosphere, stepped forward. Her blue skin had darkened to its normal shade. The collective always follows the same pattern, she said. First, they study a planet. Then they take control of important places, Finally, they collect samples of the local species for experiments. Dr. Chen pointed to her computer screen. We intercepted this message yesterday. Varnian ships are preparing to capture humans in major cities tomorrow. Reed looked at the worried faces around him. We need to go public with what we know. We can't fight them alone. But how? Asked Colonel Parker, a military officer who had risked his career to join them. The government thinks you're a traitor, Reed, and they've convinced everyone the Varnians are friendly. Kim, the young scientist who had discovered music's effect on Taylor, spoke up. We could hack into global communication networks. I can do it with Dr. Chen's quantum transmitter. That's illegal, Colonel Parker warned. So is letting aliens take over our planet, Reed replied. He turned to Taylor. Do we have enough evidence to convince people? She nodded. I brought files from the Resistance. They show the collective's plans and what they did to other worlds. Dr. Chen made the decision. We do it tonight. Kim, prepare the transmitter. That evening, the Resistance team worked quickly to prepare their message. Reed would be the face of the broadcast, with Taylor beside him. They gathered all their evidence, translated Varnian messages, images of their military ships, and Taylor's Resistance files. We're ready, Kim announced. When I activate this, we'll break into all major television, radio, and internet channels for exactly 10 minutes. Reed took a deep breath and looked at Taylor. Their eyes met, and he felt a strange connection that had been growing stronger each day. Thank you, he said quietly, for risking everything to warn us. She touched his hand gently. Your people have shown me more courage than I expected, especially you. Kim interrupted their moment. We're live in 3, 2, 1. Across the world, screens flickered. Regular broadcasts were replaced by Reed's face. People of Earth, he began. My name is Commander Elias Reed. What I'm about to tell you will sound unbelievable, but you must listen. The Varnians are not our friends. They plan to invade Earth and experiment on humans. For the next 9 minutes, Reed and Taylor presented their evidence. They showed the invasion fleet approaching Earth, explained the Varnians' telepathic abilities, and revealed their true intentions. We've discovered that human music disrupts their telepathic networks, Reed explained. If you see Varnian soldiers, play loud music with strong bass beats. It will confuse and weaken them. As their time ran out, Reed made a final plea. Form your own resistance groups. Protect your families. We will send more information when we can. Stay strong, humanity. We can fight back. The broadcast ended. In the silence that followed, everyone waited. Did it work? Colonel Parker asked. Will people believe us? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared through the facility. Dr. Chen checked the security cameras. Varnian ships, she said, her voice tight with fear. At least 5 of them, landing outside. Reed grabbed a weapon and turned to the others. They found us faster than I expected. Everyone to your positions. Taylor stood beside him, her face determined. The broadcast worked, Elias. They wouldn't send this many ships if they weren't worried. Reed nodded and handed her a small device. This plays that dubstep music that affected you the most. Let's see how your friends like it. As they prepared to defend the facility, screens around the world showed chaos. In some cities, people ran in fear. In others, groups were already forming, ready to fight back. Humanity had received the message, and many had chosen to resist. The attack on the facility was fierce. Varnian soldiers with sleek silver weapons poured from their ships. Reed and Colonel Parker led the defense, using the facility's security systems and their limited weapons. Turn on the music, Reed shouted into his radio. Giant speakers on the roof blasted heavy dubstep music. The effect on the Varnians was immediate. Many grabbed their heads in pain. Some fell to their knees, but the Varnian commanders, wearing special helmets, pushed forward. They've adapted. Taylor warned, firing a weapon alongside Reed. The leaders have protection against the sound. For 2 hours, they held off the attack. Then suddenly, the Varnians retreated to their ships and flew away. That was too easy, Colonel Parker said, suspicious. Why would they leave? Reed checked the facility for damage. Everyone had fought bravely, and no one was seriously hurt. But something felt wrong. "Where's Dr. Chen?" he asked, looking around the command room. Kim checked the security cameras. "I don't see her anywhere." Fear gripped Reed's heart. He ran to Dr. Chen's lab. The door was open, and the room was empty. But on her computer screen was a message, "I'm sorry." "They took her," Reed said when he returned to the others. But how did they know exactly where to find her? Taylor's face darkened. There must be a traitor among us. The resistance members looked at each other with suspicion. Trust, which had been growing between them, suddenly broke. "That's not possible," Colonel Parker argued. "Everyone here was carefully chosen. Then how did they find us so quickly after the broadcast?" Reed asked. "And how did they know exactly where to find Dr. Chen?" As they argued, Taylor suddenly grabbed her head and cried out in pain. Reed rushed to her side. "What's wrong?" he asked, holding her shoulders. "The collective," she gasped. "They're trying to connect to my mind again. I can feel them searching for me." Reed helped her to a chair. "Can you block them?" "For now," she said, her voice weak. "But they're getting stronger. They know I'm here." That night, Reed couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Dr. Chen and the possibility of a traitor. Around midnight, he decided to check the communication logs himself. What he found shocked him. Someone had sent a message right before the Varnian attack. A message that contained Dr. Chen's location. The sender's ID belonged to one of their own team members. As Reed stared at the screen, Colonel Parker entered the room. "You should be resting," Parker said. Reed turned slowly. "Did you know about this, Colonel?" "Someone sent the Varnians Dr. Chen's location." Parker's face revealed nothing. "We need to talk, Reed. Privately." They went to a small meeting room. Parker closed the door and sighed heavily. "It's bigger than you think," he said. "World governments made a deal with the Varnians months ago." Reed couldn't believe what he was hearing. "A deal? What kind of deal?" "Technology," Parker explained. "The Varnians offered advanced technology in exchange for test subjects, a small percentage of the human population. That's insane." Reed slammed his fist on the table. "They sold out their own people." Parker nodded sadly. "They believed it was better than being completely destroyed. They didn't know there was another option." "And you?" Reed asked. "Where do you stand?" Before Parker could answer, the door opened. Taylor stood there, her face pale. "I heard everything," she said, "and I have something to tell you both." She walked unsteadily into the room. "The headaches are getting worse. Soon, the collective will break through my mental barriers." "What happens then?" Reed asked, concerned. "They'll see everything I know," she said. "Every plan, every person I've met." She looked directly at Reed. "You need to leave me behind." "No," Reed said firmly. "We'll find a way to block them." Taylor touched his face gently. "There is no way, but there might be a chance to save Dr. Chen and stop the invasion." "How?" Parker asked. "The Mind Shaper," Taylor explained. "It's the Varnians' main ship. It controls their telepathic network. Dr. Chen will be taken there for study." Reed understood immediately. "You want us to infiltrate their main ship?" Taylor nodded. "But I can't go with you. I'm a liability now." Her eyes met Reed's. "You must do this without me." Reed took her hand. "I'm not leaving you. Not after everything we've been through." "Then I have an idea," she said. "But it's dangerous, and you might not survive." "I'll surrender myself," Reed explained to the resistance team. "I'll tell the Varnians I've captured Taylor and want to trade her for protection." Everyone looked shocked. Colonel Parker shook his head. "They'll kill you immediately." "No, they won't," Taylor said. "The collective doesn't waste resources. They'll want to study Elias because his mind resists our telepathy. The plan was dangerous but simple. Reed would get himself captured and taken to the Mindshaper. Once aboard, he would find Dr. Chen and sabotage the ship's telepathic amplifier, the device that strengthened the Varnians' mental powers. "How will you find Dr. Chen on such a massive ship?" Kim asked. Taylor pressed her hand against Reed's forehead. "I'm giving you a mental map of the Mindshaper. All Varnian resistance members memorize it." Reed felt a strange tingling as images flowed into his mind. He saw corridors, rooms, and the central chamber where the amplifier was kept. "While Reed is on the ship," Colonel Parker said, "we'll launch an attack with our remaining forces as a distraction." They spent the next day preparing. Kim developed a small device that could override the amplifier's controls. Taylor taught Reed how to mask his thoughts from Varnian guards. That night, Reed found Taylor alone, looking at the stars through a window. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he admitted, "but not of dying. I'm afraid of failing." She turned to face him. "There's something I haven't told you." Her voice trembled slightly. "If you succeed in replacing the amplifier's programming with Kim's device, it will break the collective's control over all Varnians." "Isn't that good?" Reed asked. "For some, yes. But many of my people have never lived without the collective controlling their thoughts. Some might go mad." She looked down. "Including me." Reed gently lifted her chin. "We'll face that problem when we come to it. Together." For a moment, they stood close, two beings from different worlds connected by something neither fully understood. The next morning, Reed prepared to leave. He wore a tracking device hidden in his boot and carried Kim's small device sewn into his jacket. "Remember," Taylor said as they said goodbye, "you must activate the device exactly when Colonel Parker launches the attack. The timing must be perfect." Reed nodded. His eyes met hers one last time before he stepped out into the snow, hands raised in surrender. Within an hour, a Varnian scout ship spotted him. When they landed, he told them exactly what they expected to hear, that he wanted to bargain. They took him aboard immediately. The Mindshaper was enormous. From the small window of his cell, Reed could see it was the size of a small city. After several hours, guards took him to a large room with medical equipment. "Commander Reed," a tall Varnian said, "I am Chief Scientist Vorel. You interest us greatly." "Where is Dr. Chen?" Reed demanded. "I want to see her." Vorel smiled coldly. "Your human colleague is valuable to us. Perhaps you would like to join her." The guards took Reed deeper into the ship. As they walked, he memorized every turn, matching it to the mental map Taylor had given him. They passed rooms filled with transparent pods. Reed's blood ran cold when he saw humans floating inside many of them, hundreds of captured people, in some kind of suspended animation. Finally, they reached a laboratory where Dr. Chen was working, surrounded by Varnian guards. "Reed," she gasped when she saw him. "What are you doing here?" "Apparently joining you," he said calmly, though his mind was racing. Dr. Chen looked thinner and tired, but her eyes showed intelligence and determination. When the guard stepped away briefly, she whispered, "They're making me study human brain patterns. They can't understand why some humans resist their telepathy." Reed whispered back, "The others are launching an attack soon. Be ready." A sudden commotion outside interrupted them. Alarms blared throughout the ship. "It's starting," Reed said. The distraction. On screens around the lab, they could see small human ships attacking the Mindshaper. The Varnian guards rushed out to respond to the emergency. "Now's our chance," Reed said. "We need to get to the central chamber." Dr. Chen nodded. "I know where it is. They showed me the whole ship, thinking I couldn't escape." Together, they ran through the corridors of the massive alien vessel, heading for the heart of the Varnian collective's power. Reed and Dr. Chen raced through the corridors of the Mindshaper. Alarms blared around them, but most Varnians were busy responding to the attack outside. "There." Dr. Chen pointed ahead. "That's the central chamber." A massive door blocked their way. Reed pulled out a small tool Taylor had given him and pressed it against the control panel. The door slid open. Inside was a breathtaking sight. A glowing blue pillar rose from floor to ceiling in the center of the room. Around it, smaller pillars pulsed with energy. The telepathic amplifier, Reed said, exactly like Taylor described. He took Kim's device from his jacket and approached the main control panel. Dr. Chen watched the door nervously. "Hurry," she urged. "They'll realize we're missing soon." Reed worked quickly, following the instructions Kim had given him. The device connected to the control panel with a soft click. Immediately, the blue light began to flicker. "It's working," Reed said. "This will replace the collective's control signal with human thought patterns." Suddenly, the door slid open. 3 Varnian guards rushed in, weapons raised. "Step away from the amplifier," one commanded. Reed stood his ground. "It's too late. The program is already running." The lead guard fired his weapon. Reed ducked, but the energy blast caught him in the shoulder. He fell to his knees, crying out in pain. As the guards moved toward him, the ship shook violently. The blue light in the central pillar turned purple, then red. "What's happening?" Dr. Chen shouted over the noise. "The program is working," Reed managed to say through the pain. "It's broadcasting human thoughts to all Varnians." The guards dropped their weapons and grabbed their heads. They seemed confused, as if hearing thousands of voices at once. The ship shook again, more violently. Warning lights flashed everywhere. "The ship is self-destructing," Reed realized. "We need to get out of here." He staggered to his feet, holding his injured shoulder. Dr. Chen helped him toward the door. "The escape pods should be 1 level down," she said. As they made their way through the chaotic ship, they saw Varnians running in all directions. Many looked confused or frightened. Some were helping release humans from the stasis pods. They reached the escape pod bay just as another explosion rocked the ship. Reed's tracking device beeped. The resistance forces were nearby. "Get in," he told Dr. Chen, pushing her toward one of the larger pods. "Take as many free humans as you can and launch immediately." "What about you?" she asked. Reed looked back at the corridors. "I need to find Taylor's ship. I can't leave without knowing." Dr. Chen understood. She hugged him quickly. "Good luck, Elias." As Dr. Chen organized the escape of the freed humans, Reed ran back into the burning ship. He followed the signal from Colonel Parker's fleet. Through smoke and falling debris, he spotted a familiar figure near a damaged Varnian scout ship. Taylor. She was wounded, struggling to stand. "Taylor," he shouted, running to her. She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Elias, you should be gone by now." "Not without you," he said, supporting her weight. They made it to the last escape pod just as the section behind them collapsed. The pod launched automatically, shooting away from the dying mineshaper. As they watched through the small window, the massive alien ship broke apart in a series of explosions. "It worked," Taylor said softly. "I can feel it. The collective's control is gone." "Are you okay?" Reed asked, worried about what she had said earlier, that some Varnians might go mad without the collective. She touched her head, then smiled with wonder. "I feel myself, truly myself, for the first time." She looked at Reed. "And I feel something else too." Their pod splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. Within hours, resistance ships found them. 3 months later, Reed stood on the deck of a new ship, the first joint human-Varnian vessel. After the destruction of the mineshaper, many Varnians had rebelled against their leaders. The invasion had become a revolution. Taylor joined him at the railing. She wore a new uniform, marking her position as ambassador, a real one this time. "Ready to leave Earth?" she asked. Reed nodded. "There are other worlds under collective control. They deserve freedom too." "And us?" she asked quietly. "What about us?" Reed took her hand. Once, her blue skin had seemed alien and strange. Now, it was simply part of the woman he loved. "I told you I wouldn't leave you behind," he said. I meant it. As Earth grew smaller behind them, Reed thought about the night Taylor had first come to his room. She had told him to leave her alone, then sought him out in darkness. Now, they were heading toward light, and whatever future awaited them among the stars.